Sunny San Diego, known for its good weather, nice views, and honestly not much past that, but what it does have is a weird situation where it's isolated itself from the rest of Southern California, leading to it having its own version of everything the rest of SoCal has. This same thing goes for commuter rail. SoCal as a whole has Metrolink, however, San Diego has its own commuter rail separate from Metrolink, one known for its coastal routing and having an odd amount of rail fanning channels naming themselves after one of its locos. I'm of course talking about Coast Express Rail, more commonly known as Coaster. Howdy and hello everyone, and welcome to 5008 Explains, a show where I, a person not named 5008, so please, for the love of God, I beg of you, stop calling me that, explains things in the rail industry briefly enough for you to be able to start and finish watching this video in the time it takes for you to get from Sereno Valley to Old Town. In today's episode, I'll be going over San Diego's equivalent to Metrolink, and just like San Diego's comparison to LA, while it may be smaller and less popular, you can be rest assured its aesthetic is 10 times nicer. The San Diego North County Transit District's Coaster. Our story starts the exact same way as the story for Amtrak's Pacific Surfliner, which I have a video on, so if you want something more in depth, go there. But to give you a gist, Santa Fe constructed a line between National City, a town just south of San Diego, to Barstow via Oceanside and the Temecula Valley, a decision that would absolutely bite them later on. This created the route of coaster we know today, granted a bit less refined. Naturally, as time went on, the Santa Fe would establish passenger rail routes along this line, along with the newly constructed surf line between Oceanside and Los Angeles. The most major of these was of course the San Diegan, which was not only the predecessor to Pacific Surfliner, but also the predecessor to Coaster, given that it serves some of the stops that Coaster does but Surfliner doesn't serve today. However, given that there wasn't any true service to become Coaster, we now have to jump all the way to 1975 when they, say it with me everyone, created the North San Diego County Transit Development Board, or the NSDCTDB. Naturally, this would later be shortened to just the North County Transit District once operations began. NCTD initially only ran bus service, what my North County viewers know as Breeze. However, in 1982, NCTD was looking to establish a commuter rail service between Oceanside and San Diego. This route would mainly target the people living in the suburbs of Oceanside, Carlsbad, and Encinitas, and commute them to the growing hub of Sereno Valley and the established hub of downtown San Diego. Now, as someone who has spent a good quarter of his life in traffic on the 805 and 5 commutes from South County to Sereno Valley, this isn't the busiest quarter in San Diego, but that commute was being handled by the newly established San Diego Trolley, so this one made relative sense. At the time, this route was dubbed the Coast Express Rail and would utilize the existing Santa Fe trackage, which was now relatively modernized, but still had lots of single tracking and a nasty slow segment in Miramar. But unlike most commuter rail projects, NCTD actually had some foresight, I know, ultra rare, and so we're looking to actually buy this segment, known as the San Diego subdivision from the Santa Fe. The funding for this acquisition would come from Transnet, a measure created in 1987 that imposed a 0.5% sales tax on San Diego County residents for transportation projects. Over the years, this money piled up till 1994 when NCTD finally had enough money to buy the segment. So, in 1994, NCTD created a subsidiary known as the San Diego Northern Railway, or the SDNR, who would buy the trackage from Santa Fe. The total area was 41 miles from the San Diego County line in the north all the way down to the yard limits of the downtown San Diego rail yard. Alongside this, the SDNR also purchased the smaller 22-mile Escondido subdivision, which ran from Oceanside to Escondido, but we're not talking about caterpillars in this video. Also in 1994, the rolling stock came into play. SDNR bought 5 Morrison-Knudsen F40PH-M-2C locomotives. These units were unique as not only were they built by MK, not EMD, but they also utilized reused parts from older F40 units. These 5 units were numbered 2101 through 2105. SDNR also purchased a small fleet of 16 Bombardier coaches, 8 normal coaches, 8 cab control coaches to allow for push-pull service. The coaches were numbered 2201 through 2208, and the cab cars were numbered 2301 through 2308. With the arrival of these units and a simple yet iconic paint scheme, NCT's Coast Express Rail service, now renamed to Coaster, was ready to begin on February 27, 1995. The initial service ran with 6 trains departing in the morning and those same 6 departing in the evening. This service was also weekday exclusive, so yeah, no weekend day trips just yet. The SDNR also initially didn't hire their own staff. Rather, they contracted Amtrak to provide personnel, something that Amtrak seemed to do a lot back then for new commuter rail services. The original route to Coaster wasn't too different from how it was today. The most major difference was Solana Beach. Solana was initially a single-tracked ground-level station with a grade crossing at Loma Santa Fe. However, in the late 90s, this station would be double-tracked and put into a trench, leading to the entire grade separation of the area, and the first of what will hopefully be many trench and tunnel projects to come to the corridor. Despite the fact that this project was, an entire rail line being shoved a few stories into the ground, I can't find any info on when this happened. Either all the news stories covering this got lost to the sands of time, or NCTD just hopped onto Transport Fever and lowered the tracks while the game was paused. Following this in 1997, SDNR would purchase an extra 6 coaches numbered 2401 through 2406. These coaches were virtually the same as the initial order, so not much to go over here. Over the next few years, Coaster would continue to grow until the service got some notable rolling stock. In 2001, SDNR would purchase 2 EMD F59 PHI locomotives. These 2 went alongside the other 2 going to Dallas-Fort Worth's TRE commuter rail and were the final F59 PHI locomotives to be produced. The 2 F59 PHIs were numbered 3001 and 3002, and since we're talking about numbers, let's just admire how SDNR decided not to number these units 2106 and 2107, a decision that appeared to just cascade as time went on. 2 years later, in 2003, SDNR would purchase 6 more Bombardier coaches, but this time only 4 would be coaches, numbered 2501 through 2504, and 2 would be brand new cab cars, numbered 2309 and 2310. See, now you can understand why I'm positively kerfuffled at the decision to number these 2 in the 3000s. These 6 also introduced a slightly new interior and utilized welded car bodies rather than bolted car bodies. Following this, it was all quiet on the rolling stock front, but SDNR now finally had the ability to bolster up service and implement some double tracking here and there. Around this time, Coaster broke the 1 million ridership mark, hitting 1.4 million annual riders by 2004. Thanks to the addition of the F59s, the F40s began going through some rather early midlife refurbs, with these taking place between 2000 and 2004. These refurbs added new advanced systems along with cosmetic and structural upgrades. From here, Coaster pretty much continued as it is, granted adding service here and there. So now we jump all the way to 2018, where NCTD began looking for a replacement to their entire fleet of equipment. NCTD was intrigued by the new Siemens Charger locomotive, but weren't blind to the issues it appeared to already be seeing, and so released this massive study where NCTD basically did a full-blown audit on the locomotive, deciding that yes, it was what they wanted to go with, but they were gonna have to make sure it's gonna work how they wanted it to. And so in 2018, NCTD purchased an initial 5 Siemens SC44 Chargers with an absolute downgrade of a paint scheme alongside a TSSA agreement from Siemens. For those unfamiliar, a TSSA agreement is Siemens' way of smoothing out the maintenance process for their equipment by providing staff and systems. One issue with the TSSA that I heard for NCTD was that if you want to perform a software upgrade on a charger, you need Siemens personnel on site to do it, which isn't a complete disaster, but when 5006 is out for like a week because it needs permission to upgrade to a new version of McAfee and the Siemens guys out on vacation, it kind of becomes a bit noticeable to someone like me who has nothing better to do than track 9 practically identical locomotives. But anyway, back on topic, these initial 5 chargers arrived in summer of 2020, but unlike the previous chargers, they had 2 noticeable things on them. All of the chargers purchased for Coaster have these 2 sticks on the back of them. Now, I can't find any true confirmation on this, but from those I've spoken to, these sticks are apparently intakes for the dynamic braking system. On the sister channel Whitestone's Rail, I talk a lot more about the issues with the charger in a multi-part video series currently ongoing, but essentially the most major issue with the charger is Siemens put the intake for the dynamic brakes on the bottom of the locomotive, which is really dumb since snow, ice, and rain can get in when conditions are bad enough. Now, San Diego usually has great weather, but there are times when the rain can get pretty bad if a tropical storm rolls on by. So if these are intakes, then that is an absolutely goated plan by NCTD. These 5 chargers were numbered 5001 through 5005 because of course they were. We gave up on the great and even 2000 numbering series ages ago. Who do you think we are, Ace? These 5 also had the reporting mark listed, which is now NCTC. I haven't mentioned it up until now, but all the previous rolling stock had the reporting mark of SDNR or SDNX. I keep hearing both and I can't find confirmation on either, but regardless, this rolling stock was listed under San Diego Northern, but now it's listed under North County Transit Commuter, which is either a weird way of saying NCTD directly owns Coaster's rolling stock now, SDNR has been renamed to NCTC, or SDNR just straight up ceased to exist at some point. The 5 chargers entered service on February 8th of 2021, officially ending the service life of the 5 F40s that had serviced San Diego residents for nearly 26 years at that point. However, now the service was 5 chargers and 2 F59s that were both nearing 20 years old, and thanks to the location of the yard sitting next to the ocean, these locomotives were looking less like 20 and more like 45, so they were also in need of a replacement. This replacement would come in the form of 2 additional chargers purchased in 2019, Locos 5006 and 5007. But Sandag decided to finally throw their least favorite child a bone and bought them a nice gift of 2 more chargers, numbered 5009 and 5008. Oh my god! Okay, fine, I'll stop glazing the blue thing. For now. However, because Siemens was being bombarded by a massive order of 125 ALC-42s from Amtrak, these 4 took a long while to build, finally leaving the shops in late April of 2023 and beginning their journey down south. Lucky me even got the chance to catch this move on its way down here. Soon thereafter, the 4 locos would begin testing. Now, I heard that 5006 was the first test, but I can't get any footage of it nor proof. So I'm going to take the privilege to rewrite history, because the first of the new order to actually begin revenue testing that was actually caught on film was the one and only Loco 5008 on June 24th of 2023. Following this new order, the F-59s were basically immediately pulled from service. Some filmers will cry at that statement, but really look at this thing. It looks like it's going to dissolve into a pile of rust if the engineer puts it in anything above notch 4. But because NCTD is a transit agency in the US, they were flat broke following this order, and so completely backtracked on the idea of having 4 and went for having 2 instead. Alongside this, they also wanted to sell 5 of their 8 coaches from 1995. The 5 coaches would eventually be sold to the Utah Transit Authority, but the 2 chargers were never sold. If you're wondering which 2 they would have been, I heard it would have been 5007 and 9, as they arrive in a pretty crummy condition, but since neither Metrolink nor Caltrans were interested, especially after Caltrans got screwed over with having a full fleet of chargers go as well as expected, NCTD just had to keep the 2 and continue with a fleet of 9 chargers. 5009 would also prove to be the problem child of the fleet, but that's a whole story in and of itself. Following the second charger order would come the arrival of a new order of coaches finally. These coaches would be Bombardier's new CEM model of coaches, which feature newer designs able to keep the crew and passengers safe in case of a crash. They also featured a horn that's become half my entire identity on YouTube, but I'm not even going to mention it because that's a ship I'm not trying to die on right now. This order contained a total of 11 coaches, 8 standard cars, and 3 cab cars. These coaches took, let's just say, a while to enter service, with the first set pretty unceremoniously entering service in late August of 2025. Not only are we avoiding the established numbering, but we're also avoiding the established digit counts. The 8 coaches were numbered 42101 through 42108, and the 3 cab cars were numbered 421 through 423. I genuinely have no idea why they went with this. And with that, we've reached the modern day. NCTD is still working on getting the full fleet of CEMs in service, and in general, the service is expanding and ridership is growing, granted, not as fast as some of the other services in the US. And when combined with some nice improvements that I don't really want to go over right now, Coaster seems to be on a good path. With all that being said, I do believe Coaster has the ability to become a great alternative to driving along the I-5 to and from North County. Local agencies just need to, for the love of God, hop off highways and help fund improvements to make this service into the rather good commuter rail it could one day become, but that's a topic for another day. And hey, maybe in the future, they can get someone who knows how to count to number their rolling stock.